Welcome back to Vancouver Carpenter. So doing the corner cabinet doors can be a little bit intimidating, but as I found out, it's actually pretty easy. And if you follow the steps in this video, which is actually following the instructions on the hinge package, well, you'll find out too, it's actually pretty easy. So I filmed the whole tutorial just like the other cabinet door video, but unfortunately my mic kicked the bucket while I was filming for a couple of days. And when I got the footage back, it all sounded like this. It's time for... So because of that, we're going to be going over it in bullet point form, which will actually probably take less of your time and still help you get it done just right. Now I'm going to put a link in the description. If you need to update the hinges, you can. And also if you use the same hinges that I did in this video, it's going to help you do this job a little easier because the old hinges that I had were all busted up. They didn't work very nicely. So in order to do that, one of the first things you need to know is what type of hinge you need. So the two most common type are going to be a full overlay or a face frame. So let's take a look at what those are. Okay, so these ones are a full overlay 170 degree hinge. So they're called 170 degrees because as you can see, it swings out 170 degrees from its original location. And this is a full overlay because the door fully covers the cabinet box. The easiest way to understand that is that this wood part here is all the cabinet box. So when I open this door, you can see that the door fully covers this part of the box. It doesn't come halfway, like to right here. That would be a half overlay. And it's also not a face frame. Let's go take a quick look at a face frame hinge. All right, these very dark cabinets are a face frame. So we've got a full strip of oak here. As you can see, it's like a strip of 1 by, or maybe even 5/8. And the hinge sits on here. So that's a face frame. It means the cabinet has a face and this hinge is on the face of it. Now hopefully that was helpful, but if you still don't fully understand, you can also just Google full overlay, half overlay, partial inset, I don't know, there's a bunch of other ones. But once you Google that, you'll see some really good diagrams that'll help you understand it even better. So next we need to go over how the doors should be measured. So in my last video, I mentioned that I didn't order them correctly. So I based them off what the old doors were, which was overlap. Now, if you're using the hinges that I'm recommending in the Amazon link here, that's not gonna work. And I found that out the hard way. I ended up having to rip the door down so that they were both an identical size so that they lined up properly. And then I had to pick a side to put a couple coats of shellac paint on. So I taped it off really nicely, and then after a coat of paint, a quick sand, and another coat of paint, it was more than passable. So it was a pretty easy solution. Okay, so next I had to install the hinges, and that was pretty straightforward. And I was also able to leave the old hinge plates on. Trying to install the new ones was going to be a little bit problematic, so I could use the new hinges on the old hinge plates without having to mess anything up. Because of that, I was able to basically do the exact same thing as I did for all the other doors, you know, just under 3 3/4 down for the setback from the top of the door, the same 4 millimeters inset. So basically it was just routine, the same thing I did on all the other doors in the last video. Once I finished that though, that's where I started to get a little bit intimidated. However, thankfully the Blum hinges come with really good instructions in them, and I just followed that. So I had to bore out the hinges on the next side. And that said to center the hole a 1/2 inch away from the edge. And I did that exactly to the best of my ability. And what ended up happening was I was not really able to get the hinge in easily. So what I had to do is I had to chisel out a little bit more of the material to get that 35 mil bit to fit right in there. By bit, I just mean the hinge. So on the next one, I decided to go 7/16 from the edge. And that one ended up working out perfectly.
Okay, moment of truth. Perfect. So 1/2 inch was just too far. It needs to be like 7/16.
So I would highly recommend doing this on a test door first. I didn't, and so the 1/2 inch didn't work for me, but if you test it out on a test door, then you'll know exactly if it's gonna work. Next, I installed the mounting clips on the other side of the first panel. And again, just to the instructions exactly, and it worked out perfectly. Clipped everything together, and then it was time to see if it actually fit on the cabinet.
So yep, this is the result of just following the instructions. This is definitely not something I ever would have been able to do just trying to figure it out on my own. I think I would have messed that up for sure.
So once I had that installed, I gotta say I was pretty pleased with how easily it all actually went together. Just a little bit of following instructions. The only problem I had was that it did all seem to be a little bit of a snug fit. And so when I opened and closed, it was kind of rubbing at the bottom a little bit. But I'm pretty sure the reason for this is when I ordered the doors, I forgot to spec 5/8. And the doors came back at 3/4. So I think that just took away the wiggle room that I would have had. So it still worked. It wasn't 1,000,000% perfect, but if you guys have been following along in this series, you know that I pretty much did this for free on the move out. Now initially, after seeing that it rubbed a little bit, the perfectionist that I am, I was going to like go and cut some of the cabinet off and then re-edge band it and try and make everything perfect, but yeah, I changed my mind. And now I'm going to show you the outro from that video because it's like the only part where the audio wasn't crapping out. And why not see the guy who actually just finished the job, not the guy who's talking about it a week and a half later.
If you're still watching, I know you're a true supporter of this channel. I went home, I had some lunch and a coffee and thought about it for a bit, decided to install the handle and just let it be what it is. I'm doing this whole job out of pocket. I'm gonna save that kind of service and care and attention. You know, the guy who would have gone and gotten the tool and cut that little bit out and putting that piece of edge banding on, that kind of service is for the paying customers. So once I put the handle on, this works really well. There's that little bit of rubbing. It'll eventually wear itself away and work just right. And you know what? As always, it works even better from my house. So yeah, now we're officially done. And this works way better than the one that we had when we first moved into this place. I mean, there's a reason there wasn't one on here, and that's because it didn't work. So yeah, I'm definitely leaving this place a little better than we found it. So thanks for watching. Till the next one.